A horizon of endless white. Silence so dense it drowns your pulse. The sky. A gray wound spilling frozen light over mountains that haven't seen the sun in 10,000 years. Somewhere in that endless ocean of ice, something ancient stirs beneath your boots. Something older than civilization, waiting for the warmth of a human breath to awaken again. The storm cuts through you like knives. Every gust peels another layer of warmth from your flesh. You are surrounded by ghosts. Their whispers echo through the wind, tracing back to a time when fire was sacred and survival was mathematics written in bone and snow. Beneath the glacier's translucent skin lies a vault of forgotten perfection, where and intellect merged into something humanity no longer remembers. The great ice fields are not dead. They are memory itself, compressed into cold, blue crystal. Every crack, every droplet that melts carries a story. Of hands that shaped tools sharper than obsidian. Of minds that read the stars without compasses or screens. The world believes it knows its ancestors, but the ice keeps their last secret sealed, as if waiting for us to earn it. When civilization burns, ice endures. It watches empires rise and drown, erasing centuries with one quiet drift. But what if, deep inside a melting wall of ancient frost, lies not death, but design? Codes carved in bones, pigments that defy time, remnants of knowledge that shouldn't exist. The line between myth and blurs under the weight of what was never meant to thaw. The glaciers are opening their mouths, and what they're about to reveal will rewrite everything. The story of who we are didn't start with fire. It began here, frozen in silence. And now, as the planet warms and the past wakes, humanity must decide whether the secrets buried in the ice will save us or finish what the cold once began. Imagine this. Midnight. The wind screams like a living thing, tearing through the valley of ice where your breath turns to shards before it even leaves your lips. The cold is not air. It is a weight that crawls into your lungs and stays there, thick and merciless. Around you, the world has lost color. Only white and shadow remain. You hear it in the distance, the sound of the earth cracking beneath its own frozen skin. Your boots sink into snow that has never known the warmth of light. 10,000 years of storms have passed through this silence, and yet something beneath your feet hums with a pulse. You do not know if it's the blood in your ears or if the glacier itself is breathing. The night feels sentient, as though it remembers what you've forgotten. Each step you take echoes back an ancient rhythm, the heartbeat of the world before fire, before metal, before words. You stop. The sky above you weeps light from a moon that looks too close, too broken. Your fingers tremble as you lift them, tiny cracks forming in your gloves, frost crawling over your skin like a living parasite. To stay still is death. To move is pain. You are trapped between two impossibilities, each breath a negotiation with extinction. The wind speaks in frequencies you almost understand. You listen, and your fear becomes reverence. This isn't emptiness. It's a cathedral built by entropy itself. Every gust resculpts the architecture of the mountains, every snowflake a chisel in's unending sermon. You realize the ice does not simply hide the past, it preserves intention. Frozen inside this vast tomb are the decisions of those who came before you, choices written in flesh, bone, and silence. Maybe they didn't disappear. Maybe they just went to sleep. You take another step, and something shifts below, a vibration, a tremor not caused by the storm, but from the glacier itself. For the first time, the sound is not wind, it's movement. Beneath your boots, the ancient world stirs like an animal coming out of hibernation. You kneel, gloved hands pressing into the surface. It's warmer than it should be. Something trapped there wants out. The thought alone makes your pulse accelerate because you know that ice does not warm itself. 10,000 years of silence suddenly feel thin. You imagine faces fossilized in transparency, eyes open, not dead but waiting, waiting for something to melt, something to awaken. The paradox claws at your rational mind. For everything to survive that long, it must have been protected intentionally. By whom? The wind answers with another scream, tearing through your thoughts as if to silence them. The world around you folds into instinct. Survive first, question later. Your body lowers. The snow creaks. You brush away a thin layer, revealing a surface unlike anything natural, a smoothness that could only come from touch. Human touch. You trace it with your fingers and feel the grooves of deliberate design, not fracture. The realization sends chills that have nothing to do with temperature. Someone, long before you, carved this place. Someone left a message in the only material that could outlive time itself. Ice. The air starts to change. The storm softens only for a moment, and you hear it. Deep below, the subtle release of trapped air escaping through invisible veins. The glacier exhales, and that breath feels older than the continents. You freeze in place. Every instinct screams that you are trespassing on a memory too sacred to disturb. Yet something compels you. Curiosity or destiny, it no longer matters. You brush more snow away, uncovering the edge of a hollow cavity, a space swallowing light completely. There's no rational explanation for what you see there. The shadows curve unnaturally, bending the moonlight into spirals that dance across the frost. You lean closer, and the air pours out of the cavity with a hiss, like a whisper in a dead language. For an instant, you think you can hear syllables inside the wind, words formed by the movement of ancient gases escaping after millennia. The whisper says your name, or something that sounds like it. You fall back, gasping. The reality of warmth spreads under your palms again, heat radiating from below the ice. Impossible. The earth at this depth should be frozen beyond imagination. You glance at the horizon. The landscape stretches endlessly, but somewhere deep within that whiteness, the world's memory is defrosting. The ice awakens not as an element, but as a witness, and it remembers you. Your ancestors walked these lands barefoot against storms that would dismember the modern body in hours. They calculated heat loss with instinct, constructed shelters from principles we now call thermodynamics, and shared breath to prevent collapse. Yet no civilization remembers their names. What if the glacier you stand on is not their tomb, but their archive? What if they buried their last heartbeat here so that one day, when the planet began to warm again, their message could rise from the cold? You slide your hand across the ice until you feel a texture that stops you. Tiny ridges forming a perfect geometric grid. Not random, not natural. You scrape the frost aside and glimpse something metallic, or what looks like metal, dulled and layered under transparent crystal. Your mind stumbles. Metal work at this depth, at this age, should not exist. It contradicts everything you have ever been taught. And yet it's there, staring back at you from beneath a prison of diamond-hard frost. You press your ear against the surface. At first, silence, then faintly, a heartbeat. 2 beats. 3. You pull back instantly, breath hitching in panic, but it's too late. The sound is not in your ears anymore. It's inside your chest, syncing with yours. The glacier has measured you. It knows your rhythm now. You try to speak, but words die in the frost. The wind halts, just for an instant, as if the planet itself expects you to respond. Your torch flickers. You drop to your knees and dig, desperate, irrational. The snow burns your hands. Your vision shudders from the effort. Every breath feels like swallowing knives. The deeper you go, the warmer it becomes. You uncover fragments, fibers, pigments, and carvings forming spirals and lines. Together, they look like a map, but it's not of any known continent. It twists in shapes that contradict logic. Continents reversed, oceans misplaced. A memory of the world before the one you know. A sudden pulse surges through the ground. It's not a quake. It's a rhythm, like a colossal heartbeat echoing through the planet. The sound rolls up your spine, freezing you in a vibration that's not fear, not awe, but something in between. You feel small, trivial, an intruder in something vast and self-aware. For the first time, you realize this glacier is not a remnant. It's a machine, an organism of memory and time that still functions perfectly after 10 millennia. And now, it knows you're here. You stagger back, clutching your chest as the ground still hums beneath your feet. The sky churns with clouds shaped like veins, illuminated by a blood-red shimmer that creeps over the horizon. The world feels alive, watching, acknowledging your trespass. You whisper under your breath, an apology perhaps, or maybe a prayer to something long forgotten. The only answer is a snowflake landing on your cheek. Warm, impossibly warm. You look down one last time into the hollow. The shadows are gone, revealing a sheet of translucent blue beneath which something immense lies dormant, a shape neither human nor natural. It is carved with deliberate symmetry, a sculpture of purpose older than the pyramids, sealed away in the one element that never lies: ice. You know instinctively that this is not discovery. It is remembrance. You stand, heart pounding against the prison of your ribs. Every instinct urges retreat, but something in the frost whispers otherwise. Fear becomes fascination. You turn your gaze toward the mountains, their peaks draped in aurora light, their spines heaving under the weight of history. The storm roars again, burying your footprints instantly. The world erases evidence of your presence, as if to protect the secret you've just uncovered. As you walk away, the air behind you cracks once more. The ice shifts open by less than the thickness of a human hair. Beneath that fracture, a glimmer pulses like a heartbeat returning. It is not light from the moon. It's something internal, steady, alive. The glacier exhales again, this time longer, deeper. Somewhere within the endless ice, the past turns over in its sleep. And from that ancient dream, the ice awakens. Imagine this. You've been walking through the storm for hours, your jaw stiff, your heartbeat drumming against the walls of your chest like a trapped animal. The world is still nothing but white noise and frozen breath. Your instincts whisper the same thing Hollywood taught you: build a fire, stay warm, survive. But out here, that advice isn't just wrong. It's suicide. You crouch and strike flint, your frozen fingers trembling as sparks die against the relentless wind. The fire catches, then hesitates, its flames lapping weakly against the dark air. You feel relief for a moment, until you notice the snow blackening, melting into steam that traps the heat around your face. You inhale, and the first breath of invisible death enters your lungs. Carbon monoxide, the spark that promised life now feeds death as quietly as sleep. You don't notice it yet, but the warmth is killing you. The myth of fire has infected human memory. It's the comforting illusion that heat equals safety, that light equals hope. But in the glacier's domain, warmth is not salvation, it's imbalance. Every calorie of heat you create threatens the fragile equilibrium between body and environment. Out here, warmth doesn't preserve you. It announces your death to the cold gods watching from the void, and they always answer. Picture this. Your group huddles around the flames, believing in the theater of security. Their faces flicker between orange and fear. Yet just beyond that circle of light, predators move, massive shadows adapted to the white world. They've learned to hunt the arrogant warmth of humans. The fire that Hollywood worships as heroic now functions as a beacon, revealing your position to everything that still remembers hunger. The ancient survivors, the ones entombed beneath the ice you walked upon, knew this truth by instinct. Their fire was never exposed. They learned to channel heat, not release it. They used stone walls as lungs, trapping warmth and letting it exhale only drop by drop. They turned fire into geometry. They engineered survival. The flames lived underground, beneath layers of snow, transforming death into controlled breath. That system was built on 3 laws. First, never let light betray heat. Second, let the earth breathe before you do. Third, share warmth, never hoard it. These weren't traditions. They were survival algorithms written in the logic of physics. Violate even one, and the cold doesn't forgive. It doesn't just freeze you. It erases the memory that you ever existed. You sit before your pathetic flame, realizing how much you've been lied to. Every modern instinct screams for comfort, for glow, for the illusion of control. But this is not your age. Here, comfort is the first nail in your coffin. The ancient tribes understood that. They didn't build fires to feel safe. They built systems to remain unseen. They turned warmth into stealth. Their genius was not survival by domination, but by surrender. Close your eyes. Imagine how they lived, not as cavemen, but as thermal architects. When the temperature fell below survival, they pressed together in rhythmic intervals, synchronized breath forming a pattern that redistributed warmth across bodies like organic machinery. They exhaled into hollowed walls of ice designed to trap air without melting. You could call it primitive, but it was closer to art. They didn't fight the cold. They negotiated with it. Why does the modern mind refuse this? Because we worship conquest. We're taught to conquer, not cooperate with it. But the ancients survived because they listened to silence and found its equations. They whispered to frost and learned its tempo. Their world was pure thermodynamics, fluid, mathematical, obedient. Our world is arrogance distilled in flesh. If you tried to live by their code today, you'd call it madness. But out here, madness is the only logic that survives. The warmth you trust is your enemy. The real safety lies in control of differential, the balance of loss and containment. Your ancestors mastered it intuitively. They knew the precise threshold between warmth that sustains and warmth that signals death. Not because they measured it with instruments, but because every generation that miscalculated vanished. Evolution became engineering, perfected by extinction itself. So you extinguish the fire. The smoke rises in reluctant spirals, fading into the void. The silence that follows feels heavier than the wind. But almost immediately, something changes. The air no longer suffocates your breath. The heat remains trapped under your clothing, layered, mechanical, alive. Your body becomes its own furnace, your mind its regulator. The illusion dies, and for the first time, you feel like you're learning the truth hidden by the movies you grew up with. They never show this part, do they? The quiet horror of survival, the numb ache in your bones that never leaves, the awareness that warmth is a narcotic, not a solution. It lures you to stillness, convinces you that safety is the same as survival. But life here is movement. Stasis is surrender. And every step you take in the frozen dark is a negotiation with mortality itself. Think of the first humans who faced this reality. They had no screens, no manuals, no myths, just instinct. They looked at the light and saw both life and betrayal. They didn't craft stories to glorify fire. They built rituals to contain it. To them, flame was not hope, but responsibility. It was a beast that needed to be leashed, never trusted. The irony is cruel. We call them primitive, yet they calculated heat transfer better than any textbook. They made architecture out of necessity, domes of snow layered like lungs to exhale in cycles, channels built to filter smoke invisibly into the wind. They lived by the physics of humility. While we build towers to defy the world, they dug hollow shelters into its skin to become part of it. They weren't survivors. They were integrators. Out here, arrogance dies fast. You feel your pulse slowing, your breath sinking with the rhythm of the storm. The body stops fighting and begins to mimic what surrounds it. You realize this is not surrender. It's adaptation. You are no longer fighting the cold. You are cooperating with it. The longer you resist, the quicker it drains you. The moment you trust its rhythm, it starts teaching you. It teaches you that warmth is not heat. It's exchange. Breath to breath. Skin to skin. Every exhale a recalibration of life. Every shiver a signal that your body still remembers ancient math. The temperature is not your enemy. The imbalance is. You are not meant to destroy the cold, only to balance it, like a note sustained in harmony. The ice listens, waiting for you to stop screaming and start understanding. Somewhere beneath your feet, deep in the fossilized chambers of the glacier, lies evidence that proves this truth. Charred remains surrounded by blackened tunnels, fire burned underground. Their architecture preserved combustion without combustion. They transformed flame into pulse. The same principle used in modern thermal regulation existed there, carved in nothing but snow. The equation for endurance was written not in textbooks, but in survival. You feel the wind cut across your face again, but now it doesn't hurt. It warns. It communicates. Each gust carries patterns you can almost decode. You hunch into the storm, not against it, but within it. You can almost feel their presence. The ancestors watching, evaluating, remembering that 1 in 1,000 humans might still be capable of learning. The ice feels less hostile now, more like a mirror than an executioner. The true test is not lasting the night. It's staying invisible to it. That was the secret they left behind. You don't conquer the cold by resisting it. You conquer it by disappearing inside it, by blending warmth and frost until you're neither enemy nor intruder. That is the of endurance. That is the mythology that truth destroyed. Now the wind intensifies again, as if to challenge your conviction. You close your eyes and whisper their law under your breath. Never let light betray heat. The storm responds by softening, if only a little. You kneel again and place your hand on the snow. It's warmer now, not because the air changed, but because you did. The heartbeat below the glacier returns faintly, approving, alive. And as the darkness folds around you, one realization crystallizes in your mind like frost forming under glass. The myth of fire was never about survival. It was about arrogance. The ancients did not worship flame. They buried it, fearing what it would make of them. You breathe out one final plume of steam, faint and steady. You are not the master of fire. You are its consequence. Imagine this. The storm hasn't ceased for 3 days. Frost has started to claim your eyelashes, your hands, even the air you breathe. And still, your group marches as one. 5 shadows cutting through an infinite sheet of white. Every step feels like a declaration against extinction. You're not walking anymore. You're enduring. Your body moves because the group moves. The rhythm is everything. Step, breath, exchange, silence. No one speaks. You communicate in glances, gestures, instinct. The storm devours words anyway. This is how the ancients survived. Not as individuals, but as patterns. They built something more precise than civilization. They built systems, protocols so refined that even death had to obey their order. They called them pillars, not gods, not metaphors, structures of truth carved through experience and blood. 4 primal laws that decided who became ancestor and who vanished into frost. The first is structure. The second, heat management. The third, collective rhythm. The fourth, intellection, the thinking mind that watches the other 3. Each pillar is a piece of machinery, living inside every human body that learned not to die in ice. The first pillar, structure. When chaos rules the horizon, shape becomes oxygen. The tribe understood that order was survival. No random camps, no improvisation. Every shelter, every path, every gesture was geometry. Their shelters were not huts, they were coordinates. Snow was their material of calculation, temperature their medium of design. They placed entrances opposite to prevailing winds, built domes that compressed air into insulators, carved tunnels angled to trap escaping warmth. Every decision, a theorem written in frost. You imagine standing inside one of their shelters. The walls breathe, not metaphorically, but physically, through pores carved by melted ice that refroze into honeycomb lattices. It holds heat like lungs hold air. The temperature inside is 18 degrees warmer than outside. The ceiling glows with diffuse snowlight, pure, calm, mathematical. You feel safe not because you hope, but because the structure obeys physics. Desire means nothing here. Execution means everything. The second pillar, heat management. The ancient tribes were masters of thermodynamics before the word ever existed. They understood the rule modern man forgets. Your body is not the heat source. It is the regulator. Too much warmth and condensation kills. Too little, and muscles freeze like machinery left in winter. They created double skins of fur and hide, spaces where air could cycle instead of suffocate. They built vents that exhaled like nostrils and covered them when wind reversed direction. Survival wasn't passion, it was calculus. You picture your group applying this same principle. You move with discipline. You regulate, not react. The weakest is placed in the center, the strongest flank the edges. Heat flows inward from bodies like an invisible tide. Breath becomes instrument. You test condensation on your skin, adjust the rhythm. No one panics, because panic spikes heart rate, and every spike leaks heat into oblivion. In the ice, emotion feeds entropy. They knew that too. You begin to understand your ancestors weren't primitive. They were engineers guided by necessity. Where modern people chase comfort, they optimized survival potential. They turned observation into protocol. They didn't speculate. They measured with bodies instead of rulers. One wrong breath pattern meant ice forming inside lungs. Their lungs became laboratories. Every survival was an experiment run against cruelty. Every generation that endured left equations carved in memory. The third pillar, collective rhythm. Alone, you freeze. Together, you synchronize. The tribe moved like a singular organism. Sleep cycles staggered, breath aligned, every step shared weight. If one collapsed, another bore part of their load without being asked. It was embedded law. Daily functions became music, ritualized repetition that kept the mind from descent into despair. The way a drummer sustains pulse for soldiers, they sustained hope through movement, never random, never unsynced. Imagine the sound. Dozens of feet striking soft snow in measured intervals. Your ears catch the pulse faster than your eyes recognize faces. It steadies the heart. They used rhythm to hypnotize death itself, by convincing the mind it was part of something eternal. The ice couldn't kill unity, only isolation. That's why the lone wanderer always dies while the clan endures. Rhythm is not poetry here. It is mathematics set to heartbeat. The fourth pillar, intellection. Modern minds call it logic. But what they practiced was awareness sharpened to instinct. One had to think without thought, act within comprehension, yet beyond conscious fear. This pillar wasn't abstract. It meant reading microtextures of wind, knowing when silence grew too silent, recognizing snow color shifts as warnings of buried danger. A faint blue tint, thin ice, a sudden drop in wind, avalanche coming. Every second demanded calculation faster than words could process. You pause in the storm now, and for a fleeting instant, you feel it. The merging of the four pillars inside you. Structure in your posture, heat control in your breath, rhythm synchronized with the group, intellect decoding the blizzard. It's almost symphonic. You sense the ancient genius living through your every motion. This system isn't survival anymore. It's transformation. Survival becomes consciousness. Your eyes wander toward the horizon. Through the fog, silhouettes emerge. Tall, smooth, and deliberate. They are not random formations. They look sculpted, arrayed in perfect intervals against the plain. You approach one, and your torch reflects tiny triangular carvings, equidistant and rhythmic. Geometry again. The same pattern carved into the glacier days before. The language of sequence. The ancestors leaving proof of organized thought. Numbers hidden in the ancient idea that math and survival are one. Inside one of those icy monoliths, you notice fused ash mixed with bone fragments, remnants of controlled fire insulation. Proof of the second pillar, heat management. The air feels heavier now, almost reverent. You realize you are walking through their preserved process, not their ruins. This is no graveyard. It's a manual for endurance. And the glaciers kept it intact because energy never dies. It simply waits to be remembered. You kneel again, pressing your palm against one pillar. It feels warmer than your hand. There's energy trapped inside, humming with quiet purpose. For tens of centuries, this system slept under silence. And now, with ice thinning, it calls to those who can still understand. You close your eyes and imagine the tribe following these four laws until they became reflex. Education, written into flesh over generations. It raises a question that burns through the chill. How much of that intelligence still survives in us? Your heartbeat answers. Somewhere between the rational and the instinctual lies the memory of harmony. You sense your every motion aligning with invisible blueprints written in DNA older than civilization. The pillars weren't lessons of the past. They were components of being human itself. When society insulated you from, you forgot the architecture of your own endurance. But here, stripped to bone and ice, it returns like muscle memory. You rediscover the original algorithm. You speak aloud, voice barely surviving the wind. Structure, heat, rhythm, mind. The words taste ancient. The group responds with synchronized breath, a chorus of fog dissipating into night. It feels ceremonial, though you know it isn't a ritual but a calibration. Your ancestors didn't seek gods. They sought equilibrium. That was faith enough, an unbroken alliance between intelligence and environment. In the quiet that follows, you realize why these pillars mattered. They turned chaos into cohesion. They replaced fear with order. In their logic, every breath, every heartbeat, every design served a single principle: sustainability through unity. Death could take a life, but not a system. That was their immortality. They engineered survival as legacy rather than luck. The storm softens. For the first time, starlight pierces the veil above, reflecting on ice like veins of mercury. The world feels suspended, not hostile anymore, just alive. You sense that somewhere beneath, the same energy still pulses, guiding you without language. The pillars are awake now, remembered. And with that realization, the myth of primitive man dissolves completely. Their intelligence wasn't lost. It was frozen, waiting for you to listen. You could almost swear the glacier breathes beneath your feet again, but now you don't fear it. You understand. Because the system they left behind wasn't mechanical. It was spiritual by design. To follow the four pillars is to restore harmony with elements, to become once again a part of the equilibrium that birthed humanity. You are not defying the cold. You are fulfilling the law they left inscribed in every molecule of ice. As you drift deeper into the frozen landscape, you carry the pattern within you. Step, breath, rhythm, thought. The path becomes linear, the air responsive. The mountain seems lighter, the silence less oppressive. You no longer fight for survival. You participate in it. The ancient machine has begun to turn again, and you have become one of its gears. Imagine this. Your boots strike something beneath the snow. A hollow sound, sharp, metallic, wrong. You freeze, not from cold this time, but recognition. The ice below you is not natural, it's carved. Layers of transparency reveal shapes that defy the language of geology. You kneel, brushing snow aside with your gloved hands until a pattern emerges. Circles within squares. Lines intersecting in deliberate precision. The glacier, once a tomb, has become a window. Your group gathers around, their silhouettes blurred by swirling frost. No one speaks. Words feel primitive compared to what lies below. Beneath centuries of compressed silence, you glimpse edges of crafted structure, smooth surfaces, symmetric grids. This is not random freeze. It's architecture. Your pulse rises against the tempo of wind. Something human, or once human, was sealed here long before your species forgot how to remember. The storm quiets, as if the sky itself wants you to listen. You brush away more snow, revealing what looks like a translucent barrier, fractured but intact. Inside, Faint shadows float like ghosts. Objects too linear, too intentional. Metallic artifacts rest in perfect alignment, preserved like offerings. You feel the heat of your own breath against your mask. The realization crawls through your mind. This is not discovery, it's rediscovery. The ice was built to conceal knowledge until someone like you could read it. You strike the layer lightly, and the vibration sings, echoing in frequencies too low for human ears. It travels beneath the surface, awakening sleep that lasted millennia. The sound transforms into a hum, faint at first, then resonant, spreading like blood through veins of frost. The group steps back. Something responds. From deep within the glacier, a pattern emerges, light refracted through impurities igniting sequentially, forming geometric halos that trace across space. The mountain itself glows. There is no mythology here. There is technology born of intuition so pure it looks divine. You realize the ancients never fell. They ascended, then disappeared beneath their own success. Their brilliance became their shroud. What humanity calls evolution may simply be regression from a zenith buried under ice. Every melting droplet that touches your gloves feels like a message decoded. They didn't die in the cold. They entrusted the cold with their message. You look closer and see carvings etched along one of the inner walls. Spirals, lattice-like grids, recursive sequences spiraling endlessly inward. Each curve precise beyond randomness. They radiate intelligence, a language written in frequency instead of letters. No tool marks, no crude chiseling. The shapes seem grown, as if the ice itself responded to instruction rather than instrument. You realize you're staring at a form of communication that transcends speech, mathematics made visible. Your breath fogs the surface, and something flickers beneath the ice again. Movement. Not mechanical, but rhythmic, pulsing faintly with thermal variance, like a dormant heart responding to proximity. You step back instinctively. The air feels charged, heavy. Your group exchanges brief glances, eye contact laced with instinctive terror. It's not fear of ghosts. It's fear of implication. Whatever did this wasn't primitive. It was deliberate, disciplined, and far more advanced than simple survival required. The scientist in you wants to analyze. The survivor in you wants to run. But curiosity is evolution's oldest weapon. You reach for the layered frost again and feel vibration traveling up your arm, steady yet powerful. There's intelligence stored beneath that frozen surface. A blueprint, perhaps, or a record of systems long lost to time. You begin to suspect this was not mere refuge. It was an archive, a place where data and biology merged, entombed in the one element incorruptible by rot or radiation. Ice was their hard drive. You think back to the ancient laws, the pillars of structure, heat, rhythm, intellection. The same precision that governed their survival now appears here, magnified to cosmic scale. This capsule might be their culmination, an act of preservation like digital code written in molecular structure, information hidden in temperature gradients, magnetic fingerprints, minute isotopic ratios. You stare, and for the first time, you feel that knowledge might not be written to be read, but to be felt. Then the wind shifts again. A layer of frost breaks under its own weight, revealing within the ice something unmistakably human, a handprint. Perfectly preserved, skin texture intact, each ridge fossilized in transparency. Smaller than yours, perhaps female, perhaps ancient beyond measure. The fingers splay outward, almost reaching toward you. You press your hand against it, and for a brief second, the temperature rises between skin and glass. A connection across 10 millennia. You're looking at yourself in reverse time. That's when you understand. This place was not carved by accident. It was built by the same minds who perfected living with the cold instead of beating it. They didn't succumb to the ice. They merged with it. Their technology was ecology, machines designed to cooperate with climate rather than conquer it. Somewhere along history's fracture, that secret was lost, replaced by vanity and dominance. The result is warming oceans and dying seasons. The ancestors didn't fail, we did. You signal the group to watch as you melt a small access point, the flame trembling. Steam rises. Beneath the layer, narrow chambers unfold like veins. Inside are objects, but not weapons, not tools, cylinders etched with fractal scripts, organic patterns grown in crystal. They pulse faintly, harmonizing with your very heartbeat, as if measuring you, confirming identity. This is no treasure vault. It's a vault of genetic memory, every ounce of knowledge encoded in frozen biomatter, preserved for a future inversion of climate. Someone whispers that maybe this was prophecy, that they predicted collapse. You don't know if prophecy is the right word. It feels more like contingency, like a note left for whoever would inherit both their intelligence and arrogance. You watch one of the cylinders emit faint warmth, subtle enough to fog the surface. The sound beneath your feet deepens again, a vibration traveling through kilometers of frozen strata. The glacier is speaking. Translation won't come through words, only resonance. Now you understand why they hid it under oceans of frost. Ice ensures survival where civilization guarantees decay. In stone, messages erode. In metal, corrosion wins. But in ice, time pauses. They calculated perfectly, using the melting of Earth itself as trigger. When the climate grew warm enough for discovery, humanity would either have evolved enough to understand or vanished trying. Either way, the message would reach consciousness, a final exam written by ancestors long gone. The group begins documenting feverishly, yet your mind drifts. You think of myths, the frozen gods, the sleeping giants, the divine architects. Every legend was remembrance distorted by need. The real story is colder, purer. No pantheon, no magic. Just people so advanced that there became indistinguishable from reverence. They didn't seek immortality. They engineered continuity. The glacier was their Aiden, deathless, silent, waiting. One of your companions taps a resonance sensor against the ice. The echo returns immediately, hollow, then harmonic, then perfectly periodic. A pattern repeats every 3 seconds, modulating subtly. You realize it's not random. It's communication by frequency modulation encoded through water density. The entire glacier functions as a transmitter. This isn't storage. It's communication delayed by eons. You are listening to an active system waking from its frozen sleep. The hum deepens until snow falls silently around you. Vibration crawls through your feet, up your spine, resonating behind your eyes. Colors distort. The glacial wall ripples faintly, no longer transparent but luminous. You glimpse silhouettes, figures frozen mid-motion, each posed as if in ceremony. They are not corpses, but representations, carved or encoded holographically. Their faces calm, serene, eyes open, as though aware you've arrived. Time fractures. For a second, the horizon bends, sounds layering upon themselves like echoes across dimensions. The wind halts entirely. You feel infinite age press against your consciousness. It's not horror. It's invitation. They're not warning you. They're asking you to understand, to finish what they began. The ice stretches beneath your vision, transforming from glacier to cathedral, each crack becoming an organ pipe, each silence a note. The magnitude of meaning is unbearable. Then, just as quickly, the light fades. The hum collapses into one final tone and vanishes. The wind roars anew, scattered snow reclaiming the opening you carved. It's over, or perhaps just paused. The frost thickens again, sealing the barrier as if closing an eyelid. Whatever connection existed retreats back into dormancy. Yet your mind, now marked by the experience, knows too well. It wasn't hallucination. You felt the system breathe. You kneel one last time beside the sealed chamber, watching your reflection distort in the glassy ice. For 10,000 years, this mountain has kept a secret, guarding the last testament of humanity's first engineers. And now, as the world warms enough to crack the seal, their legacy escapes one molecule at a time. They sent no warning, no curse, no myth, only a design, etched in ice, to remind the future that we once understood how to live with the planet, not against it. As you stand and turn toward your group, the storm engulfs the sky again, erasing every trace. The glacier hides its truth once more, pretending stillness. But deep within, patterns shift in silence, waiting. The ice remembers what you've touched. It catalogs your presence, your rhythm, your heartbeat. And somewhere far beneath, the ancient hum begins again, quiet, faint, persistent. The time capsule is no longer sleeping. The ice has started to remember. Imagine this. Dawn breaks over a landscape still half asleep beneath ice. The storm has stopped, leaving behind a silence so pure it feels sacred. The glacier glows faintly with light that isn't sunlight but reflection, like the world remembering how to breathe. You stand at the edge of what was once a secret buried for 10,000 years, and now the ice exhales. Every ray of morning light bending through fractured crystal feels like consciousness returning to the planet itself. The air tastes different now, sharp, mineral, charged with the scent of thawing prehistory. All around you, the snow has shifted into symmetry, melting in patterns too precise to be chance. You're not standing on wilderness. You're standing on architecture. The legacy of those who once mastered the balance between flame and frost vibrates beneath your boots. The ancients didn't just survive here. They designed existence to obey entropy's rhythm. You understand now that they were not builders in the modern sense. They were composers who orchestrated thermodynamics into geometry, using itself as instrument. Each glacier, each gust of wind, was tuned to sustain equilibrium. Their architecture wasn't to protect from, but to synchronize with it. Theirs was a civilization without arrogance, an intelligence that refused dominance in favor of continuity. They created permanence not through stone or metal, but through humility refined into structure. You crouch, tracing the lines of exposed ice where crystalline corridors glimmer beneath the translucent crust. The shapes are beautiful beyond reason, spirals expanding into fractal grids, light refracting through them like coded prayers. You realize these aren't ruins. They're blueprints still running, systems still functioning under invisible logic. The glacier's inner glow pulses faintly, not decaying, but evolving. The structure beneath is alive, communicating through temperature differentials and vibration. Your breath fogs again. You whisper, more to yourself than to anyone. They engineered for time. The words hang heavy in the frozen air. The thought feels almost blasphemous. Not because it challenges religion, but because it challenges human ego. These people didn't fear the end. They prepared for it. They embedded data in molecular lattices, ensuring their story would outlive even decay itself. Your group gathers around, their eyes wide with reverence. There's no more doubt. The ice isn't merely a geological phenomenon. It's a sentient relic of design. You can feel the logic vibrating beneath your feet, equation meeting intention, matter serving meaning. One of your companions suggests taking samples, but somehow you all know that would break the code, as if removing a piece would ruin the music of its existence. Understanding is not dissection, it's resonance. You close your eyes and listen. Beneath the hum of wind, a low pulse repeats. Steady, patterned, almost resembling a heartbeat. It's the same pulse from the archive you uncovered before, but amplified. It synchronizes with your chest as though measuring your response, testing empathy. The air grows warmer, softening around your skin. The glacier recognizes you not as intruder, but participant. You aren't studying the architects. You're becoming a continuation of their system. For a moment, the world goes silent except for that pulse. You imagine them, the frost architects, working under spectral light, their hands shaping equations into substance, their voices never raised, their will guided by the unbreakable laws of balance. They weren't gods or magicians, only listeners patient enough to hear's code before the storm of civilization drowned it out. You feel their presence in the wind, not supernatural, elemental. The living earth acknowledging its engineers. The lesson becomes clear. Survival was never victory. It was harmony. In overreaching for dominance, humanity broke the very systems that once made it sustainable. The architects saw this end coming. Perhaps they knew the cycle was inevitable, that destruction is simply heat mismanaged on a planetary scale. So they wrote their wisdom into ice, banking on climate as messenger, trusting that the future would burn enough to listen. Their calculation was perfect. The melt has begun. You scan the horizon. Entire valleys glisten with veins of blue light snaking through melting corridors. It's not catastrophe, it's conversation. The glacier is decomposing deliberately, releasing fragments of frozen code into the atmosphere, seeding air with microstructures of memory. Every molecule that evaporates carries a story upward, dispersing their final message into the lungs of the living world. The more the planet warms, the louder their voice becomes. You look to the sky, a spectrum of colors fractured by steam and ice particles, the atmosphere shimmering with polychromatic light. It feels less like apocalypse and more like awakening. The message is clear but impossible to translate. It speaks through sensation rather than syntax. You realize humanity's challenge isn't deciphering the code. It's remembering how to feel the way they once did, to read the planet by resonance, not conquest, to listen instead of extract. You turn to your companions and see faces transformed by awe, fear, curiosity, the raw spectrum of comprehension dawning. No one speaks. Words are too small. The glacier emits a slow creak like a closing book, sound bending around you as if space itself acknowledges transition. You feel the gravity shift, not physical, but existential. The boundary between human and dissolves slightly, just enough for you to sense the continuity binding both together. And then it strikes you. The architect's legacy wasn't technological progress. It was relational reprogramming. They redefined success not as control, but as symbiosis. They learned that civilization grows sustainable only when humility outweighs ambition. Their real invention wasn't architecture, it was moral geometry, engineering shaped by empathy. Ice was their scripture because only something transparent and reflective could embody truth without distorting it. You whisper into the silence, "We thought they were primitive." The words sting with shame. Modern civilization paved cities of light, but buried its conscience beneath convenience. You stare at the glacier breathing under twilight, knowing this is more than history. It's judgment. The ancients didn't vanish. They withdrew deliberately, refusing the arrogance of endless expansion. Perhaps they chose disappearance over corruption. What we call extinction might have been evolution's restraint. Your boots sink slightly as rising warmth softens the surface below. The hum strengthens again, cascading across the plain in harmonic waves. Suddenly, everything glows. The ridges, the cracks, even the snow dust floating in air. You feel it vibrating through your bones, whispering in frequencies your senses barely process. The message is simple yet infinite. Remember, it flows through you like a prayer stripped of language, a truth you can't possess, only yield to. Your companions look terrified now, as if witnessing creation in reverse. But you understand it's not destruction, it's activation. The frozen network beneath is waking, converting ice to energy, knowledge to motion. The architect's system isn't dying, it's initializing. Once they encoded survival in stillness. Now, as the earth warms, their design awakens through change. What melts isn't loss, it's inheritance. You drop to your knees as the vibration peaks. Every cell in your body feels weightless, threaded into something vast. You can hear your own heartbeat overlapping with the glaciers, the rhythm identical, the tempo aligned. It's not mystical, it's mathematical. You are a harmonic fragment within a living equation. Somewhere deep down, something whispers that the architects calculated this moment, the return of unity between creature and creation. You are their proof of concept. The light fades gradually, tapering into silence. Steam rises where frost has surrendered. The hum dissipates like breath into distance. You're left staring at an expanse that now feels familiar yet foreign, a world resurrected. You realize that the ice didn't crack to reveal death, but to reveal continuity. The architects never built monuments. They built mirrors. And what you see reflected in them is yourself. The inheritor both blessed and burdened by the memory of balance. One of your companions, trembling, asks what comes next. You don't answer. You simply look toward the horizon, where fog curls upward like smoke from the planet's rebirth. There's no instruction manual, no prophecy. The answer lies in pattern, in humility, in the silent truth that endurance is never permanent. It's participatory. The ancients trusted future humanity to remember through crisis. That memory begins with you. You take one last step forward, boots sinking into slush that was once a tomb and is now a threshold. The wind carries a faint whisper, more sensation than sound, like gratitude. The glacier no longer resists. It embraces. The pulse beneath your feet fades but does not vanish. It merges with the beating of your own heart. The legacy of the frost architects' lives, not in the ice they left behind, but in the awareness you now carry. You inhale the glacial air one final time, cold and electric, tasting both beginning and ending. The world feels fragile yet infinite, ancient yet newborn. You turn back toward your group, faces illuminated by dawn's reflection. None of you will ever speak of this discovery the same way again. Because deep down, each of you knows the truth that will haunt humanity forever. The past didn't freeze to be forgotten. It froze to remind us who we were meant to become.